Chris, Umer, thanks so much for joining us in the AWS studio.
Our pleasure. Thank you. Thanks
Very
for having
good.
us.
Thank you for having us.
Fantastic. Let's jump right in. Umer, question to you. What's the fundamental problem that we're trying to solve here?
So, the private networks and private wireless networks, they provide a much better reliability and security for the private connectivity. However, when these deployments happen, there are three fundamental issues in there. Number one is they're really very complex, right? Complex to plan, complex to implement, require a lot of system integration efforts, which are time consuming, and of course that adds to the cost as well. And the second problem is that they're very CapEx heavy. So it means that the customers have to invest upfront to actually get started on that whole innovation cycle. And that's the second fundamental problem that we are trying to solve. And the third one is that as you try to have the innovations and the edge use cases, now if they're very difficult to build, reason being because you're consuming private connectivity in one stack, and then you have the cloud stack on the other, right? And the customer don't have access to that many services. So the edge use cases or the other applications, they're difficult to build. So primarily complexity, high upfront investment, and the innovations are the three biggest issues that we're trying to solve.
So maybe over to you, Chris. What did we just announce with integrated private wireless on AWS? And most importantly, how does it work?
So yeah, we're really pleased to have made this announcement. So integrated private wireless on AWS is a partner program, which is really designed to solve exactly those problems. So we pre-integrate solutions with our edge infrastructure offerings, which means that customers can find and consume private 5G services much easier from our telco communications provider partners. So that pre-integration piece means that the partners can build solutions quicker, so it addresses the time to market issue. They can build them cheaper because we're able to take on some of the heavy work of that integration, which is a very complex cycle for them and takes them a long time and a lot of cost to build. And then lastly, we work with those partners to create a pay-as-you-go pricing model, which means that when the end customer comes to procure those networks, those barriers to entry have been resolved. So they're less complex, faster to deploy, and cheaper with the pay-as-you-go model. Now, as part of this program, we're also launching a portal where customers can come in, they can explore the solutions, they can find the right ones for their industry, the right ones for the use cases that they see they might want, and then crucially, they can procure them from our partners. So it's an AWS portal, but it's our partner solutions are made available on there. And when they procure them, because of that integration has been completed already, then they're very fast to deploy and fast to market and fast to value.
So over to you, Umer. We talked a little bit, or Chris talked a little bit about solutions and use cases. Can you give me a few examples?
Yeah. So I think the beauty of this whole approach that Chris has just mentioned is that it unlocks a very broad set of use cases. So the first one would be that where there is varying degree of complexity. So now you have very large and extra large enterprises where you have let's say, different instances of locations where private networks need to be deployed, where you have complex radio frequency planning that needs to be done. So those are one set of use cases. The other ones are it also unlocks the use cases across the cloud continuum, like the IoT kind of a use cases, which can be deployed in the region because they're not latency sensitive. Then there are use cases which are geographically located, so you can use them at local zones. And then you have ultra low latency use cases like an assembly plant of assembly line of an automotive, or robotics use cases which need to be done on-prem. Then it also opens up that you can actually take an approach where an AI/ML kind of a use case, where you train the model in the cloud in the regions. However, you do the inference right at the edge. So the decision making is done on the edge. So this actually unlocks the whole continuum. That's very important. Then another very important aspect of this use case is that it is applicable across a wide variety of radio spectrum. So it's not only for which in US we call CBRS, and in some other places called like private connectivity or private wireless, right? Or it also unlocks the public spectrum, which normally the CSP holds. And because of this partnership, it actually is widely applicable there. And then the last thing is that like the geographic spread, because AWS is present in the regions and the local zones and with the Outpost and other services in many countries. And the CSPs, which will be our partners, they are geographically spread out as well. So we are covering the use cases across this whole broad spectrum.
Partners clearly play a really important role in this solution. So Chris, what are some of those conditions for partners for IPW on AWS?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, partners are the sort of fundamental to this program. And the program is actually made up of multiple tracks. So there's a track for CSP partners, a track for solutions integrators. There's a track for connectivity ISVs. There's a track for use case ISVs to run the applications on top. And each of these tracks has a set of conditions that we want to meet. But fundamentally, each one goes back to those sort of three barriers to entry that we're trying to address: time to market, complexity, and cost. So, when we talk to CSPs and SIs, we're focused very much on the go-to-market elements, which is the pricing and the pricing model. And when we talk to connectivity partners, for example, we're focused on the pre-integration part. So we'll talk to them and we set conditions around the scalability of the solution. It must scale down to sit across our edge continuum, which includes on-premise devices. So the scalability is very important to get it down to the necessary scale to put there. And also then again around the consumption model, which our ISV partners offer to enable the whole end-to-end solution that we build with CSPs and with SIs to come with that pay-as-you-grow model overall.
So lots of compelling benefits across the board. Maybe to you, Umer, how do we think about this solution being differentiated from other private wireless offerings?
So that's a very good question, because there are quite a few solutions out there for private wireless. It's not a nascent field. We've been doing it for over 3 years as well, and we have built a lot of private networks. We've taken all the learnings from those private networks deployments and then have tried to incorporate it in this program. So making it an overarching program. So 3 fundamental aspects in it. Number one is that we are trying to provide to the customers to digitally discover, digitally consume, digitally operate, digitally manage, and as we implement in the next phase is the order management, digitally fulfill these solutions as well. That is really related to the time to market that Chris has been talking about, right? Then the second aspect is that when customers have access to the cloud stack and the connectivity stack in the same VPC, in the same virtual private cloud, that really opens that idea of like, can I use IoT services? Can I use the IML services? Can I use analytics services? So the access to like those 200 plus services that AWS has, so that they can actually build use cases. They can actually build value additions on top of it. That really makes it, as I like to call it, a seamless integration, right? That like there's no heavy lifting involved or limited heavy lifting involved. And the third aspect is really the coverage model that we have, not only with our infrastructure offerings in different countries and the CSP offerings, but across the radio spectrums as well, both the private and the public. So these are the 3 really differentiating aspects.
So just to recap here, we talked about integrated private wireless on AWS. We talked about the benefits. We talked about partners. We talked about the lower barriers to entry, cost efficiencies. Let's look ahead to the future. A question to really either of you. What's the next level of integrated private wireless on AWS?
Yeah, this is an industry which is very broad. There are some use cases that are sort of, the value is there already today. And there are some use cases coming which we're less sure. But what we do know is that the industry thinks this is a roughly 35% CAGR growth industry over the next few years, multi-billion-dollar industry. And some of those use cases are going to come through. And we're talking to companies doing anything from avalanche monitoring in the mountains via IoT sensors to agricultural use cases like IoT sensors on cows' tails, telling the farmers when they're going to calf. It's so broad that what we're doing through this program is we're enabling our partners to be ready for that growth. and the growth is just starting to ramp up now. So as Umer was saying, key to that is going to be automation. When our 5G partners, the CSPs, start to offer things like slicing, where we can actually offer private networks in an automated fashion, we're ready to do that through the IPW portal by automating the order management and automating the fulfillment of that. So really our aim here is to prep for that growth by providing the environment, providing the partner ecosystem to enable that.
And I'll just add one thing to it. It's very much in line with our vision, which is that AWS to be the best place to run 5G networks, both public and private.
So how can our customers learn more about integrated private wireless on AWS?
Well, we mentioned the portal that we've launched as part of this IPW program. So the portal is there, it's live today. So please visit there. You'll see more information about use cases, about partner solutions both for connectivity and for over-the-top applications. And you'll also see a link on there for an ebook, which takes you through our wider strategy and how IPW fits into that.
Well said. Thank you both for joining. Thank you for breaking down the announcement on integrated private wireless on AWS. And I hope to see you again soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.